it's Mike Byrnes with another episode of Business Bests. Can't wait to talk about today's topic. It's a continuation of the last time we talked, which was PR. I can't wait to help you with that topic. I'm a big fan of it. I actually try to get PR myself, so I'm not just some guy blowing a lot of hot air. Actually try to use this advice myself, and as I go through this, it's going to trigger some things that I should be doing because sometimes I forget. But you can't get PR without finding the media, whether it's the media outlet or the actual person or team that you're going to use to get published, to get get the exposure that you're trying to get. So what I would say is, before we dive in, I will a lot of times talk about print media, like being published in articles. But a lot of this advice also applies for being on a TV or any kind of multimedia program, and then also for audio, for podcasts or radio programs or whatever. I'll try to talk about all three at the same time, but the reality is sometimes I'll just talk about articles. But just that caveat, finding the press really goes back to one of the things that I've already pounded on is research. Like, I hope I've hammered that home, that it is so important. Knowing your clients better than anyone else is crucial to your success, and actually just your target market. So I would actually put your clients and your prospects in that, the whole ecosystem, into that whole category with your target market. Niche marketing is super important, but when you go to try to get press, if you know what your clients are reading, what they're engaging with on social media, what they're listening to in their car, or while they're out exercising listening to a podcast, or do they watch TV at home, or are they digesting YouTube videos, or whatever that is, like, is there some show, is there some publication, is there some kind of program that they're listening to that you should be involved in? And I can't tell you that. You got to figure that out on your own, because obviously I don't know you, but if you kind of pay attention to what your clients are doing, you're going to come up with all kinds of creative ideas of where you could actually get exposure indirectly to them, which that would be really cool if they read something and then they see that you're in that as an expert. But guess what? We've said it before, your target market hangs out with other people like them. So, your clients hang out with other people like them. So that's going to be perfect, because you're more likely to find those prospects that you want. So do research, client research, one-on-one, ask them directly what they use, and then, or what they digest, or whatever it might be. Put out a survey. I believe a survey should go out annually. I know a lot of organizations don't do that, but at least every other year you should do it. And if it's not too long, put in a question like, what do you like to listen to, watch, and read? The more you can figure that out, the more successful you'll be. So that's one way to get started with a PR strategy. The second thing that you need to do is just be aware yourself. When you're digesting content yourself, what do you like to read and listen to and watch? Are there news outlets that you want to be a part of that you're actually digesting? You shouldn't just digest what you want, but you should also digest what your audience is going to digest too, if that makes any sense. So, like, again, what your clients are reading and listening to and watching, that should be part of what you're digesting too. So in that process, just be aware of who are the writers, who are the editorial type of people that show up and are listed. One of the really nice, simple things to do is, create a database. It could be something that is complicated. I think it's Evernote or something, other different things where you can actually have all these articles go into some place that you're capturing them. It could be a simple Word document that says the title, the date, the author, and then the link to the piece. Maybe you can put a little bit more notes in it. You can just start to put all this stuff together in kind of a really rough format. That's a great way to just start. Just dump everything you can into this one folder, and pay attention to it. Over time, you'll start to see some things that are really interesting. An online article, for example, has a thing called a byline. So by, and it has the author's name usually right underneath the title, or maybe it's at the bottom, but usually it's at the top. And a lot of times, if it's online, you're allowed to click on that. And what that will do is actually show you more about the author. Oftentimes it'll have a little bio. If it's sophisticated enough, it'll have all the other press appearances of that person. So it'll actually kind of give you all the titles, maybe even the dates, and you'll be able to see, what's the theme that person likes to cover. And actually knowing what they don't cover, it can be beneficial too, because if you want to pitch something, you don't want to pitch something that they've already covered, or you'd have to have a new spin to it. But that really is a really interesting technique, just to click on the byline and capture that information. The next thing in finding the media is to search websites. Just to, go in and find that publication name, go search that, find it, there's usually 3 pages, the about page, or it might be the editorial team page. It might be even more detailed, or maybe bios or something along those lines. It'll actually list all the contacts that you want to reach out to. Sometimes it'll even give you their emails and phone numbers. The contact us page can be another way to find members of the press. I would say that sometimes is a form. Other times they'll give you the generic email, like info@ or editorial team @ something generic that goes into a pool, with a whole bunch of other reporters or journalists or other people can be gathering that. My guess is those in-bins are completely overwhelmed. And so I would try to get the individual's contact information, because that will make you more successful. So that's one way to start to figure things out. Pretty simple, right? The next one to do is to look at an actual magazine or a newspaper, if you still get anything that's physically in your inbox or I should say your mailbox. And as you open that up, you can see usually in the early pages, maybe it's not the cover page, but 1 or 2 pages in, will actually, in usually really small print, have a column from who produces it, who's the chief editor or the editor of different departments, who are the different reporters and what do they cover and what are their responsibilities. Super valuable information. So that's one other way to do it. It's actually a little easier if they have that information online, because you can copy and paste it easier. But if it's in paper, you just got to manually type it in. But that's another good source. If you get a magazine at home and that's something that your clients would digest, make sure you actually spend some time with that. Get familiar with those people that are the contacts for that publication. If you have an office where you have people coming in and actually wanting to maybe look through some magazines while they're waiting, hopefully you don't make them wait very long, but that could be something that's welcoming. So you have the things that they like to digest there. Pay attention to it when it comes. There's a pretty good amount of turnover sometimes with the press, so you can always kind of keep an eye on that to see who's coming and going. If you're really in it and you have a huge budget, there are definitely different services, different databases, 4 or 5 that come right to top of mind that you might want to consider, but they can be expensive, right? So I'm not going to list them here. Reach out to me if you want those names. But they have all the homework that you're going to be doing if you're trying to do it for free. They've kind of already done it for you, so you'll have the ability to search different publications, all the different authors and all that stuff. I would caution you that it can be expensive. So in today's day and age, a lot of this information is searchable. So that's my next tip, is actually just to search. So maybe you did have the publication name, or maybe you did have the media outlet's name, or maybe even the author's name, and you could do some specific searches there. But with search, you can be generic. You might want to just search financial reporter or something that's kind of vague, or you might want to search a topic, right? Like search what are those articles or video segments or radio programs that you could search for and see what pops up. There are all different types of ways to search. So, Google, for example, is the obvious one, but you might be looking to search podcasts, see what's interesting there. You might even, you could also get quoted in a book, right? So you could go to Kindle and see who's writing on a certain topic, or or all different types of kind of unique ways to find things. Podcasts, for example, who are the experts in certain areas that kind of are that ecosystem around your target market. So with search, you can obviously search the publication, you can search the reporter or journalist's name or anyone that is responsible for creating content, but then search those topics, etc. It does take some time to do this, so you maybe schedule some time each week to do it for 5 or 10 minutes and just see what pops up. But it's not a lazy way, but it's kind of like a more systematic way to do it is actually to create an alert. So there's a thing called Google Alerts, TalkWalker Alerts, and so what you want to do is maybe for a topic that you're going to be an expert on, put that in and set the frequency of this, and you're going to then get updates every time that term or name or whatever it might be shows up in the press. You're going to get a report on it. Super valuable to do. On a little tangent, if you're going to be in the press, you should do it for your name and your company name. I actually do it 2 versions of my name, Mike Byrnes or Michael Byrnes, just in case those that are kind of interchangeable, and different publications might not use Mike, so they might use the more formal Michael. Then the company name too, anytime that your company is in the press, you want to know about that too. So that's good to know. But that's kind of the 101 version of the alert, is finding out all about me, right? But what about what else is going on out there around your target market? And you can find a lot of different publications that maybe you hadn't thought of if you use a search tool like that. And again, that's something you don't even have to open it up, right? It's just going to be one more thing that might fill your in bin, which could be bad. But if you set up certain terms, and then when you have time to digest that, say once a week, or maybe you go in once a month and just click on those and see what's being populated, that can help you identify those press contacts that you want to add to your list and be reaching out to and working. One other thing you might want to search for is an editorial calendar. And this is one thing that if you have a favorites on your online browser, whatever you're using, to put something in there to track different publications' editorial calendars. So let's say it's a monthly magazine, and they tell you in July we're going to be talking about have a tech theme, and then if it's quarterly or monthly or weekly or whatever the frequency is, but let's say in December it's going to be about client service and such. You can get ahead of it and start to pitch an article that is way in advance, and that can actually give you a competitive advantage because you can be first to kind of knock on the door and say, hey, what about this story? But it also will allow you to have a more successful pitch. We'll talk about pitching the press in a little bit, but when you kind of know what they want, they're actually broadcasting it. They telegraphing like, hey, this is what we're going to be writing about, or this is what we're going to be covering. It's wonderful to have that in advance. Now, if you're trying to do the evening news, you're not going to get that ability to have that editorial calendar kind of thing so far in advance, unless you're really working with a program director that kind of lets you know, hey, this is what we're going to be running with at 5 p.m., and they're telling you first thing in the morning, and then you could pitch your idea that would match up to that. But usually the editorial calendar is farther in advance, and something to flag, save in your browser, regularly check, and just something you can go back to regularly to be able to contribute. A huge one to consider using is social media. In today's day and age, the journalists benefit from getting more views on whatever they're pushing out, right? And more engagement and all that stuff. So a lot of times they're actually going to be promoting everything that they do on their own. Plus the publisher, they're going to have their own handle, company name, whatever it is, they're going to be pushing out their content. So it's another great way to search. I mentioned Google might be one way you search, but you can search within the social networks too to see what's coming up. But then once you get, let's go back, when you get the byline and you click on it, and then you get the member of the press, and they say, here's the last 5 articles, and oh, by the way, here's the contact information. Sometimes they won't put the direct email or phone number in there, but a lot of times they will put the social profiles in there. So it's usually LinkedIn or Twitter. It might be other ones too. A super cool way to connect, to find out who they are, whether you send them an invite or not. We could talk about that a little bit more in a second, but the reality is now you know where to find them. You can see another way that they're pushing out content, another way to stay in front of them and be aware of what they're publishing. Sometimes they'll actually even put in requests in social media. Hey, I'm looking for an expert on X, Y, and Z topic. And if you're following them, again, and you're paying attention to the social network that they're sharing that on, you can be the first in line to say, hey, I'll be the resource that you need. Or even, like we've talked about before, is be a resource to connect the journalist to other resources, and then they'll always want to use you because you'll make their job that much easier. So let's stick with LinkedIn first. That's business oriented, so I think that's a good one to start with. You go in, you find the publisher, the media outlet's name, you go in, you search it, it comes up, then you see who works there. And you can see current and past people, but stay with current, and then most people keep their profiles pretty up to date, so you kind of get a current list of who works there, and it shows their title. Like, so if you didn't have another way to find their information, this is really cool information to see. LinkedIn will allow you to see if you have if you're not connected with them directly, you might have a second connection. So this is where you might have that friend of yours that you're connected with. It's a mutual connection, make an introduction to that member of the press. And that could be a nice way in so you don't come at them as a stranger. It's not a cold call type of communication, and to be more successful. I know other people are just really aggressive and they send out all these invites to members of the press, and sometimes the members of the press want to expand their network and will just blindly accept and connect with people, but I don't know if that is the case with every journalist. Some journalists get bombarded from every angle, so they're really private and they're not going to just accept any invite. Now you've sent that invite and it's pending forever. That's not a good look and not a good way to make a connection. So maybe just gather their information. If you go to LinkedIn, see there's 10 writers. You can research all of them, find out who's writing on what topic. Then you can maybe go back to the publisher's page, kind of gather information from all these different sources and create this profile on this journalist. And that's going to make you more successful when you do get to the final pitch, or the initial pitch, I should say. And so I think LinkedIn is super valuable for that. If you use InMail, so if you're paying for the premium with LinkedIn, you can send those cold call messages. I think for the free version, you can send 3 a month. So maybe you send them for just save them to send to the press each month. Maybe set up a reminder, the last day of the month to use those, because some people forget to use them. And so maybe that's something you could do to always try to build your network with members of the press. LinkedIn also, they can create groups. And you can find your way into a publisher's kind of group. A lot of times that's another kind of cool way to see what's being discussed. And you can share, you can kind of indirectly pitch ideas that way too. And sometimes they're getting requests for experts in their own group. So that's something that you want to look at too. LinkedIn can be pretty powerful for that. The other thing with LinkedIn too is maybe just search the topic that you're trying to stay on top of, that your target market's interested in. So another really valuable way to use LinkedIn, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, that is another valuable source. The thing I love about it is it's real time. So the algorithm kind of is messed up where you're starting to see things a little, if it just defaults, a lot of times it's just showing kind of more popular things. But if you want to go and search a hashtag, for example, there might be a hashtag on whatever topic you are trying to be an expert on. Go search that, and you can see all the people that are interacting with that hashtag, pushing stuff out. So reporters could definitely be using hashtags because it's just one more way to get eyeballs on their content. And again, they're motivated to do that because the more press hits they're getting, the better they look to their boss, and that maybe they'll be financially rewarded too, or at least keep their job in this crazy day and age we're living in. So with Twitter, that is an awesome way to search topics, right? To stay on top of what you're interested in and being published on or being that go-to expert on. So one, it'll keep you sharp to work on your expertise, but two, it's going to give you all the different pieces that are out there, and you can find new ways to twist off your own angle to make it kind of more newsworthy, or it's not that same old tired thing that's being shared out there. But again, if you search that topic, certain names, certain terms, certain hashtags, hashtags are great because it's just one click. You click on the hashtag and it shares everybody that's using it. And that can be real time too, so you can kind of stay on top of what's going on. Definitely use social networks. I can talk about other social networks in other videos, but I would really start with LinkedIn and Twitter. You can get into Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it might be. They can all have value depending on your target market and the ecosystem and what they're using. But the reality is, I would probably start with LinkedIn. It's probably your most effective use of your time right out of the gates. With Twitter, there's a hashtag journal requests or something like that. That sometimes the reporters or journalists are putting out on Twitter that they need a source, and they'll actually let you know that exists. The Financial Planning Association, they have their own media kind of query system where the press can put it out to all their members that they're looking for certain experts or people that have opinions on different topics, and they'll put in there the name of the publication, the author, the deadline, what the articles can be about. So those can be really valuable. One that's more generic, so that's the Financial Planning Association. Ben Lewis, a friend of mine, created that years ago, and it's been wildly successful. But one that's more generic is herein, help a reporter out. That one, you sign up for it. It might send 20 potential articles that these media experts need the source for. And so you can go skim through those to see if anything fits into your expertise. I don't know. I've used it a little bit. I stopped using it myself because I kind of found like I was wasting my time a little. You're not guaranteed. It's kind of a competitive situation where they might push this out. Who knows? They might get 10 to 50 to 100 people, like applicants, trying to get accepted. You're going to have a competitive situation where you're trying to get quoted or whatever it might be. But you can also, it can be beneficial because you never know what kind of other publications are out there that you haven't thought of. And so this list can be some kind of odd names. It could be some of those well-known names that you know too, but it also could be those names that you never thought of. Where that could be beneficial is, if you are published 1,000 times versus someone that's published 10 times or quoted that many times versus someone that's quoted just a few times, it gives you more credibility, right? So just maybe if you can get positive press anywhere and you have the time to do it, it might be something that you subscribe to. Again, it's free. It's just one more thing that's going to be filling up your in-bin on a regular basis. And there's other versions of that too, but that's the one that I'm the most familiar with. So it can be a waste of your time, but every once in a while you can get really lucky and kind of lightning doesn't strike every time in a good way, but every once in a while you can have some success with that one. If you're trying to get industry press, and I've talked about that in another video, why that can be successful, a great way to do that is at industry events. And so sometimes the publication will have their own event that you want to get in, or the media outlet, I should say. Other times it might be a really big company that just invites all the industry press from, maybe even retail press to an event. If it's big enough, they might have 30, 60, 100 members of the press there. This is where it's good to know what type of event strategy you have. Like, are you going to go just to listen to the sessions and the keynote speakers? Or are you going to be trying to work connections and try to get some other benefits out of it? Maybe in the break time you can meet with people or take them out to dinner or whatever it might be. At events, there's usually a media room. It's kind of off the beaten path, so they don't get harassed. There's usually in those rooms I get to go to these a lot at different conferences, so I'll tell you the experience I have. It's usually a big boardroom table, maybe breakout tables. They got all the kind of the food and the good things, drinks and food, and little tchotchkes and stuff for the reporters to feel valued. A lot of times the media relations people for the event organizer, so if it's a big well-known company, they are there, they're scheduling their people to get some positive publicity from the members of the press that are there. So know that there's a hustle and bustle going on. That room's supposed to be kind of quiet. If there are interviews going on, they usually kind of have like private breakout rooms that they can go use, not too far away from the big media relations room. But they're quiet because sometimes the journalists are just logged in and typing away. Other times they're just trying to keep up with their day-to-day job. Just because they're at a conference doesn't mean they can't be reporting on what else is happening in the industry. So there's kind of a weird vibe in those rooms, but if you can get access to them, you can go in, hand your business card, you can introduce people, you could even kind of be creepy and just hang out not too far away from the entrance if you find out where it is. A lot of times, a junior person that's signing you in, giving you your little lanyard with their name thing, you could just say, hey, where's the press room? And they'll probably tell you that the floor and maybe even the room number. All right, so that's kind of one way to do it, trying to just kind of get lucky and bump into people. Maybe a better way to do it is reach out to that big corporation's media relations team, director of PR, whatever the title might be, in advance, find out who that person is, and just say, hey, I would love to get to know some of the members of the press while they're there. Would you share the media list of who's planning to attend? Sometimes they have the list of everybody that they've invited. Sometimes they have the list of actually who's responded. Sometimes they're private about it. Sometimes they're not. You can have some luck there, if you do get the list, because then you can go back to your research of those publication sites or social networks, getting that contact information, reaching out to the member of the press and say, hey, I heard you're going to be in Texas at such and such conference next week. I would love to schedule some time. Maybe we could meet up for lunch or meet up after the keynote or breakfast or whatever it is. If you're an early person, maybe that's the way to do it. Try to meet up with them before they start their day. And then just introduce yourself for 5 minutes, right? If you know somebody in person and they like you and they see that you carry yourself well, then throughout that conference, they're going to kind of have you in the back of their head of saying, hey, I need kind of the attendees' opinion on X, Y, and Z, that they just sat in a session with an expert, or they heard the keynote, or they heard the big announcement from the CEO, but they want the reaction of somebody that would have a point of view. So that could be a really great way to get press is going to those industry events, whether it's by the publisher themselves or a nice corporation or an association or whatever, and just working the media there. I think it's kind of the reverse engineering the whole process, but sometimes you have your own events and then the members of the press pop up to want to attend, and that's a great way to meet them if they're coming to your own event. That can be something that is in person, a big conference or even a workshop that's in person, but it can also be a webinar. It's kind of the chicken or the egg. Do you invite them or do they find you? But if you're sharing information enough about your conference or your event or the webinar, they're going to want to hopefully be a part of that. And that's another great way to build up a relationship with that member of the media. 3 last ideas here. One is to advertise. So if you pay for advertising with a publisher, there's supposed to be a firewall between kind of the sales team that sells advertising and the editorial team and the journalists, and they kind of they try to be independent. But a lot of times, there's some gray area. The sales team wants to reward their people that are spending money and supporting their job, so they'll maybe knock down that wall and get you introduced to the editorial team. So if you're paying for advertising, it is kind of the real world situation that you're more likely to get positive PR if you're published, you're spending some ad dollars. One that's definitely a kind of a gray area is an advertorial. So in a magazine, sometimes you'll see sponsored content and it looks like a real article. Something to think about there. So advertising can work to get you more press and help you get connected to the right journalists and different media people. The last one I'll say, and I'll do a deeper dive on this another time, is AI. You can go and do a search. I did it right before I came here, and I said, hey, ChatGPT, can you tell me all the business writers for Boston.com, owned by the Boston Globe? And it gave me a whole listing of them, and actually had a little link that I could click on and took me to those writers' profile pages, their byline page or whatever you want to call it. So AI is going to be super valuable. This has been another episode of Business Bests. I'm Mike Byrnes. Hopefully this advice on PR and other business things is helping your business be more successful. Thank you very much for tuning in.